Welcome back to another episode of Hangar Flying with Smokehouse Pilots, and I'm super excited to have Jess Ames on with us this evening to discuss all things Angel Flight East. And so, Jess, thanks so much for joining us this evening and taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, one of the things that we as aviators love is to use our passion of flying, right, and aviation to hopefully benefit other people. And that's why I'm really excited to learn more about this program and and how others can actually get involved in that as we go through our conversation tonight. So it sounds like you've been with the organization for quite some time, 10 years or so.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about. I thought it was just going to be a stepping stone when I graduated college, and then I just stayed.
That's awesome. Where are you from originally?
So I grew up in a small town, Royersford, which is pretty much a suburb of Philadelphia, and I went to school in Lancaster to Millersville, and I studied public relations with a minor in marketing. So I always knew I wanted to work for a nonprofit since I interned for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And then after I graduated college, I actually found Angel Flight East on Craigslist, which I probably would not recommend to do in 2024. But I started out as their first programs and events coordinator and just kind of worked my way up to now the outreach and events director for the organization.
That's super cool. Lots and lots of questions I have for you along the journey right there. Um, One of the things I love about your all's about us page is the fun within your bio pictures. I just want to point that out. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that actually came from we did a staff photo shoot at J.C. Penney, kind of as a team building activity,
Mhm.
and we thought the theme would be windbreakers, and everybody just kind of jumped on board, and then we did individual photos for our website.
Oh, that's super cool. Yeah, I noticed. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I like this. This is good.
Yeah.
Shows the personality and the culture. So I'm looking forward to diving into that. So, by the way, you said you went to. Can you say that Lancaster? Say it the right way because I don't say it the right way.
Lancaster?
Yeah, see, I can't say it that
Yeah,
way. I
you
don't
say
know.
Lancaster.
um,
Now we know where you're not from
this
Lancaster.
is correct. Yeah, I'm from Indiana, so out in the middle of nowhere. But we actually have been trying to go to that location for some time now, and 4 of our flyouts have been canceled because of weather. So it's like we just can't seem to
Mm.
get up there. But anyway, so you have this passion for nonprofits. It sounds like.
Yeah, I interned for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society while I was in college on one of their pretty large fundraising efforts. It was previously the Man and Woman of the Year campaign. They changed the name of it. I can't think of what it is right now. But I just kind of saw how nonprofits worked and I immediately grasped onto it, just knowing that when I graduated, I wanted to work for an organization, whether big or small, just knowing that you could leave work every day, knowing that you made a difference. So that's really what I was looking for after graduating college. I strictly was looking at the career path in a nonprofit.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. I love it. I mean, I'm involved in a few other nonprofits, and the impact, like you said, is just that's the reason you do it, right? And really lean into it. So it takes a team to do
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
What now? Just for clarity, do you fly as well, or
I actually started flying about a year ago. So I would go on a lot of flights with our volunteer pilots. And of course, anybody who is in the aviation world, they always say it is as easy as driving a car. And I would like to say they are very incorrect because when I started flying, I was like, I am never going to understand this. There's just so much to learn, so many buttons. There's just like, you have to be 100% all in to learning it, or you're just not going to catch on, I think. So I've been flying for about a year. I'm in my check ride prep, which is
nice?
kind of scary and exciting, but once you get the hang of it, I will go back to them and say it is like driving a car. But in the very beginning, I was a little overwhelmed. And a couple times I did tell my flight instructor I didn't want to do it anymore, but they never let you give up, which is the important part.
That's right. Yeah, those that really do want to make sure that you succeed will definitely find ways for you to do that and lean into. So, well, that's awesome. Do you have your check ride scheduled already, or is it? Does it?
No, I'm too scared yet. I'm gonna wait until like maybe 2026.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. What are you flying?
I did start out in a Cessna 172, but I switched to a light sport, a sling. So it's much more modern, which I saw that I was better learning on modern technology than the old steam gauges, unfortunately.
No, unfortunately or fortunately, either way you look at it, I think there's a good argument on either side. So, um, I'm fascinated that you're learning how to fly in a sling now because I have a great friend who, as a matter of fact, right when we finish this a podcast, I'm actually going to the airport and we're going to go fly together. And he's now on his third sling.
Oh,
And
really? He
yeah,
builds them?
he
That's so
built them.
cool.
Yep. So he decided that that's what he's going to do. So he built one, and he's now on his third. And it's a great airplane.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so modern avionics, it's great. I mean, a beautiful airplane, so all good stuff. So that is awesome. And so now that and we're going to get, like I said, get into, the organization and things, but do you have a vision for utilizing your PPL to actually do angel flights?
Yeah, I think that's my ultimate goal because when I first started, obviously the expense is a little bit astronomical at first. So I went into it. Obviously, a lot of people were like, do you want to do it as career based? And I do not.
Right.
But I definitely want to use my license to eventually fly for an angel flight organization or something like Pilots and Paws, Elevated Access, any of those types of organizations, just because I hear from so many of our volunteer pilots that they get back so much more than they're giving. So that was really my goal of first getting it. And then obviously all of our pilots can stop asking me when I'm going to get my license. So those were the two biggest reasons.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's super cool. I love helping through, like I said at the beginning, helping through the passion for flight to help others. And so that's cool that you're going to do that. So job well done. So
Hmm.
I would love
Thank you.
to kind of dive into all the cool things that you all are up to. And I would love to kind of learn more about it from maybe just the origin of angel flights and then maybe specifically the East, right? So that's kind of an angel flight East because there's angel flights, I guess, all over. Is that a fair statement?
Yep, yeah. So it gets a little bit confusing because we use the name Angel Flight and we are Angel Flight East, but there's actually over 60 public benefit flying organizations across the country. A lot of us do use the name Angel Flight, but we are all separate entities. We run independently of one another. We operate a little bit differently depending on which Angel Flight you're going to. But our organization specifically covers the Northeast. We serve 14 states from Virginia to Ohio to Maine. So all of our patients and volunteer pilots are scattered throughout those 14 states. And then if we need to fly outside of our footprint, we will partner with one of those other angel flight organizations to fly people longer distances.
Got it. Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And so public benefit flying is exactly what it is, right? It's just there's these different call it flavors of what you can do for that. That's a fair approach, I think, or a fair statement.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's kind of our biggest hurdle from my point of view as the outreach director is that you kind of go in and tell people that we have these volunteer pilots who have their own airplanes and they're going to fly you to your medical treatment for free. And people kind of look at you like you have 10 heads. Like there is no way somebody's going to fly me in their private airplane for free and I'm not going to get a bill at the end of it. So I always say it's not just Angel Flight East. There's so many incredible men and women out there providing this service. And I think it's just that the lack of awareness isn't out there for these organizations and the volunteers who are providing this service.
That's really well said right there. And I think you're exactly right in that for whether it's on the patient side or the pilot side, there's just this big disconnect on how you either participate as a pilot or maybe how you find it as a patient. And so I guess that's what you're responsible for within the role that you're in, I would imagine, of solving it.
Yeah, yep. I wish I could solve it. I haven't solved it in 10 years, but I do like to say I think I have a little bit I always say I have the easier job between what I do and the pilots because they have to fly the plane, which is way harder. And I'm basically the salesperson for them, bragging about them because they're always too humble to brag about themselves. But we do a lot of outreach to healthcare facilities as well as other nonprofit organizations that we can partner with. So we find that we provide a bit of a niche service, which is the flight to medical care, but we find that a lot of our patients also need help with hotel stays or household bills while they're going through their medical treatments. So we always try to give our patients the full circle of care and refer them to the other organizations that we find that whose missions align with ours.
Mm-hmm. So do you you have a kind of a network of preferred partners that you can go to whenever you can't potentially get them in that 14 states or whatever it might be, right? And so, or a longer mission, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. We always, if somebody calls us and we're not the right fit for them, we'll never turn them away and say, okay, good luck, go to Google or go to Reddit and try to find something yourself. We'll always try to give them another organization or partner that they can call who is better suited for their needs.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so good. I love it. By the way, you mentioned that you found your opportunity here through Craigslist, right? It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I actually found my very second job out of college through Craigslist as well, and I was there
Oh,
for
really?
for almost 9 years.
Oh
So
my gosh,
yeah,
that's crazy.
so,
I don't know what the job market on Craigslist looks like now, but back then it was pretty legit. You just kind of had to dig through all maybe the scams of
yeah,
Craigslist.
exactly. Yeah, and I was in Florida, and I found this blind ad in Virginia, and I flew up, and then all of a sudden, it was the best thing ever happened to me. So it
Oh my
sounds like
gosh, that's amazing.
yeah. So when you said that, I wanted to come back to that and mention it. But how much fun do you have doing what you do?
I love it. I feel like definitely the nonprofit aspect is there, and we're such a small organization, so you know that all of the money that we get donated to us is going directly to the mission. And then I wasn't really aware of the general aviation world before I started at Angel Flight, and I found that it's extremely tight knit, and our volunteer pilots, they truly just love to fly. This is their passion, and they're just so humble about what they do. They never want to be in the spotlight, and if they ever have a free seat, you get to go on a small airplane, which what could be better than that?
Right? I totally agree. How many people are in your organization total?
We have five full-time employees and then one part-time employee. So
Okay.
we're a pretty small staff. So to do all of the outreach in the 14 states that we cover is a little bit impossible, which is why opportunities like this are just so incredibly helpful to us, just getting the word out about what we do.
Yeah, no, that's true. And like we said, I mean, it's just filling that gap, right? And so going that route. So job well done to you and your team for doing this amazing work. Can we talk about this in two different ways? So can we say, look, let's go down the pilot side of this, and then let's go down maybe the patient side of this, and how it is that both of those types of people can get aware of this and how they can help. So maybe you don't even need to be a pilot to help this organization. Can we start maybe there? If you're not a pilot, how can you help this organization with your mission?
Yeah, so if you're not a pilot, definitely we have a couple volunteer roles. If you're local, obviously you can come to our office and help us with outreach and just kind of office admin work. And then we find a lot of people that aren't local in other states that we cover saying, how can I help? And we usually put them, we have a few different committees within our organization. One of the big ones is outreach. So our outreach committee is focused on kind of targeting those healthcare facilities and states that we can't always get to. So volunteers in other areas that are not Philadelphia are just so incredibly important to us because they can be kind of our boots on the ground advocates for us in those communities that we necessarily aren't in all the time. Because we find that you could tell people over the phone what we do, but face to face is always so much better, and especially having somebody in that community who's trusted speaking on our behalf is always so helpful too.
For sure. And so it's kind of this concept which I tend to believe in. It's show them, don't tell them, right? So it's a lot better to show
Yeah.
them what's going on versus telling them what's happening and how they can help. So that's an amazing thing that somebody can do to help. Um, let's talk about or transition into the pilot side of things. So you're a pilot. How would one go about contributing?
hmm So, as a volunteer pilot with us, we ask that you have 300 hours of flight time and IFR rating, and then either own or have access to a plane with at least 4 seats. If you don't meet those requirements just yet, you can sign up as a mission assistant, which is essentially a co pilot. But once you are onboarded with us, you will have access to our flight database. So that's a web-based platform. You can see the flights that are available, where they're coming from, where they're going to, why somebody's traveling, weights and balances, all of those important details. And then from the pilot side, it's basically based on your availability and whenever you can fly with your schedule. So it's not like somebody signs up with us and we say, you have to fly with us at least once a week. It's really as much as they can give.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. So you make it rather easy for pilots to use a system to kind of put themselves out there to find these opportunities to help. Um,
Yeah, we try to make it as easy as possible.
yeah, it sounds like it. So 300 hours total time and an instrument rating with an airplane that is 4 seats, if I heard you right. Um,
Yes.
cool. That's great. One of the conversations I heard or had was around this type of thing where the word mission, as you're going down this path of helping, provide the flight, can be construed in maybe a way in which puts a bit of pressure on the pilot and wanting them to really make sure that they achieve the mission, because if they don't, they feel like they failed that mission. Have you thought about that? And does that come up with your pilots and how it is that they go through that I'm safe checklist, making sure that they're capable and competent to do that flight versus feeling like they're under the pressure because they don't want to let someone down? I mean, that's a dynamic that I think you probably have to deal with. And I would imagine you teach through that. Is that something you can talk to?
Yeah, definitely. I have come across that. And from our patient side, when we do the original intake with them, we always say that unfortunately the flight is never 100% guaranteed because the small airplanes can't fly in the type of whether a American Airlines plane could fly in. So all of our patients are made aware that they do have to have a backup mode of transportation or be able to reschedule their appointment if the flight were to be canceled. And from the pilot side, we always say if you are not comfortable telling the patient, we can take that on and just let them know that their flight is canceled due to weather. I always say one of my favorite stories is this: when I first started and I was filling in as a flight coordinator, a pilot called me to cancel because he felt so bad. And he said, "What do you think I should do? Should I fly it?" And I'm like, no, like if there is even an ounce of doubt that the weather is bad or someone's not feeling well, their plane has a mechanical issue, we trust the pilots 1000% and we never question them. So when a pilot also signs up with us, we let them know that it is 100% their call on whether to fly or don't fly, and we'll take care of the rest for them.
That's great. It's such an important part of it, right? That one could potentially put themselves under, unneeded stress there to follow through. And I think it's important as we have public benefit flying that is always taken into consideration, and that you're teaching on the other side as well as far as an expectation. So
Yeah.
that's really great. So how many? I may have asked this. I don't think I did. How many pilots do you have? Do you think?
We have about 400 within our 14 state footprint, and about 125 of those are active, meaning they fly at least once every 2 years.
Got it. So active is once every 2 years, and so do you have pilots that probably how many missions has a single pilot accomplished in a year? Do you think? I mean, do you have those stats?
Yeah, we probably about 70 to 75
Wow.
every year at our annual gala, which is our biggest fundraising event. We do a pilot of the year, and that is a pilot who has either flown the most flights or kind of gone above and beyond for the organization and the patients. So we always take into account how many times they fly. And I think the most was 70 to 75, I want to say.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that's amazing that, that's impact right there. We have a lot of people in the club in Smokehouse that participate in this type of thing, and particularly a gentleman by the name of Clay Parkhurst. Do you happen to know Clay?
Yeah, we love Clay.
Okay.
Yep. He flies to Wings pretty often.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's always sharing that. I think he just shared a mission that he did on Smokehouse Facebook page just today, maybe, or this yesterday.
Yeah, he's definitely one of our frequent flyers. He flew in here a couple weeks ago with a Pilots and Paws
Yeah.
rescue animal,
Uh-huh.
and he was actually going to wait at Wings until 5 p.m. to meet the other pilot who was taking the dog. And we were like, no, please, like you can leave the dog and you can go home. So we got to babysit the puppy, which I'm like, Clay, anytime you need a puppy babysitter, please bring them to Wings. We will take care of it.
Yeah, totally. Well, Clay is awesome, and Clay, if you listen to this podcast, keep up the great work. I mean, it's amazing what he does and what you've done, and that's really cool that you do know Clay. I mean, I was taking a shot on the dark here, but I thought you might.
Nope, he's awesome. He's one of our frequent flyers, so we definitely appreciate everything he does for us.
That's great. So that's awesome on the pilot side. Any other things that I didn't mention on the pilot side that they're asked that I should have? I mean, I think we covered everything.
I don't think so. Yeah, just like if anybody's interested in signing up, it's just a link on our website at angelflighteast.org, and then we can kind of walk you through onboarding, and then you will have access to that flight database and start signing up for flights.
Cool. So that is amazing. So now let's go to the real reason we're doing this, right? In the patient side. So how is it that individuals find this, and what is the process they go through?
It's so interesting because anybody looking from the outside in would think, oh, if you call a social worker at CHOP, you're going to get kind of an influx of calls for flights for CHOP. But it's really kind of the opposite, where we find that a lot of patients find us themselves on Google. They realize that they have to travel for care, or somebody says, oh, call Angel Flight, and they just kind of Google, and we're the first organization that pops up. So from the patient side, it's pretty simple. As long as they are medically stable and ambulatory, we can fly them as often as needed, and there's never a charge to them. So once they fill out the paperwork, fill out the need verification form, which is not financial, it's just a third party attesting that it would be a hardship for them to fly themselves, then we can kind of get their flight set up and start looking for pilots right away.
Got it. So again, a pretty straightforward process there as well. How many times do you think that someone shows up at a small airport for the very first time, to meet someone like Clay, that has never been to a small airport or ever even knew there was a small airport there? Have you ever heard of that?
A lot. Yeah, a lot. And sometimes we even find that people have never flown at all. So then we have to show them this picture of the small airplane. And a lot of people do come back and say, I'm not getting on that. But then we walk them through the steps. We have a video of what it's like flying in a small airplane. And then if people still aren't comfortable, we will offer to have a volunteer pilot call them, and they can kind of ask any question they want. It's kind of whatever they want to know, our volunteer pilots will tell them, and how safe the planes are. So it's interesting, especially because we work a lot in the rural communities. So those people are a little bit in a healthcare desert, let alone if they would have to travel to care, they may have to drive 2 hours just to get to the airport. And a lot of people don't even realize that a small regional airport is in their backyard, maybe 10 minutes away, which makes it super convenient, especially since there's no TSA, baggage check, anything like that.
Right, totally. It's interesting. I'm, as I mentioned at the beginning, born and raised in Indiana, just north of Purdue University, on a farm town out that way. And when I was growing up, it's so hard to believe that I never knew that there was a small airport just about 15 minutes north of us, with a runway that's 4,000 feet. Just a small little airport with one building on it, or one hangar building on it, and that's it. But it's those types of airports that you can meet these people at, and then transport them to, call it, Indianapolis. That would have been a 2-hour drive, and now it's going to be a 25-minute flight. And so
Yeah.
it's the rural things that you can really, create a ton of time for people because you can get them there so much faster. And most of the time, people don't even realize there's an airport there if you're not in aviation.
Yeah, exactly. And then we find that a lot of people, they don't want to travel any other way now that they've kind of flown in a small private airplane. When if we fly somebody somewhere and their flight home gets canceled, we will take on the cost to get them home, whether it's commercially, renting a car, bus, whatever it takes, we will get them home and not leave them stranded. So a lot of people come back and they're like, we don't want to go to a crowded airport and fly commercially. Like, we'll just wait an extra day or wait till the weather gets better and we'll fly through Angel Flight just because it makes it so much more convenient. And especially if you're sick or feeling well, you don't want to fly commercially, let alone if you just went through a cancer treatment or
Right.
chemotherapy. So it just gives our patients kind of the ease of a private flight and not having all those extra elements when they're traveling.
Totally. I mean, it's amazing. Do pilots find themselves flying? I mean, assuming things are going well and treatments are going well and all of that good stuff. Do you find that there's pilots that create relationships with these people and they become friends and that becomes a thing where it's not just a one and done thing, hopefully. And is that something that you find?
Yeah, it happens pretty often, especially with the kids that we fly. I find that the pilots will kind of volunteer every single flight for them. We had one little boy who we were flying when I first started. He was from South Carolina and was traveling to Philadelphia for retinoblastoma treatment. And he's actually cancer free now, but he would go back to his friends at school and say he had his own fleet of planes and pilots just because he essentially did. Every time we posted his flight, it would be taken in seconds just because he had a group of pilots that would fly him every time. And we find that with a lot of our patients, and they just continue this friendship, which started out as strangers. And the pilots are just kind of an extension of the family's care team.
Wow. That's really well put. I like that a lot.
Mhm.
And, having my own fleet of planes, that's, that's pretty
Yeah, I
sweet.
was like, I would like my own fleet of planes and pilots. That would be very convenient.
Yeah. And whenever you're sharing that with your friends, at that age, like what? Um,
Yeah.
but no, that is so good. I think it's important to mention it on the podcast because I don't want pilots to think that it could be just a one and done thing. I mean, you can really build some long-term impact as you go through this type of program.
Yeah, one of our pilots described it perfectly one time. He said, you're up in the air for an hour or two, so you just find something to talk about. And a lot of times they connect on levels that they wouldn't even think to, just because they have all that time in the air together. And then it's just kind of every time this person flies, they just build the friendship more and more.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, that's so great. I have you heard of an organization called STEM Flights by chance?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
how found you guys. I saw you interviewed Carly on it. She's
Oh, okay.
great.
Yeah, very good. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So I do some flying with STEM Flights as a pilot mentor, and so again, public benefit flying, right? And so there's all kinds of ways to give back. So again,
Hmm.
we covered sort of those that aren't pilots but can really help and donate time or resources that way. We talked about the pilot side of things, and then the patient and the care side of things. What else do you have going on as far as events and things we can help with in whatever way? And or I'd love to learn more about your podcast as well.
Yeah, so we actually, one of our major fundraising events is Saturday, which my brain is a little scattered, but it's our annual community day called Wings and Wheels. So it's hosted right at our home base airport, Wings Field. We have antique cars and airplanes, kids' activities, food trucks, basically something for people of all ages. And then we have our volunteer pilots come out and do scenic flights for attendees. And it's just kind of educating the community about the airport itself, and then also a fundraiser for Angel Flight. And then our podcast, we started about a year and a half ago. And the podcasting world has just grown exponentially so quickly. So we wanted a way to share our patient and pilot stories with people that we wouldn't necessarily be able to reach in Philadelphia. And it was just a way to kind of get the word out about Angel Flight also, and share the volunteer pilot side, why they fly for us and their experience. And then from the patient side, what it means to them. And it's just a way for us to build awareness about Angel Flight and public benefit flying as a whole, and hopefully just reach people that may need to travel for medical care but think they don't have a way to get there.
Sure. That's awesome. And so this is yourself and someone else that hosts this show?
Yeah, myself and my colleague Maddie Beck, which she is now our patient and pilot engagement coordinator, but she started about 3 years ago, and she was first our flight coordinator, so she has that experience and can kind of speak to the pilot side as well.
Oh, that's cool. Well, that's a nice duo to be able to do that. Now, do you bring guests on for that, or is that just something that you two talk about just to make sure that everyone listening knows?
Yeah, we do bring guests on. It's mostly our patients that we've flown and then our volunteer pilots. And we're hoping to branch out to partner organizations and then the healthcare facilities that we work with on a regular basis.
Cool. Well, that's great. I'm glad that we could do this and just to, maybe reach somebody along the way within the group that might be able to help contribute that way as well.
Yeah,
Sounds like you're doing some amazing work. Do you enjoy doing that?
I do. It's really fun because my colleague and I, Maddie, we're actually super close outside of work. So people call us Thelma and Louise, and some people say they listen just for the commentary at the end. And I was like, but what about the actual story and the reason we're doing the podcast? That's the more important part. Yeah.
That's funny. Well, that's awesome. I mean, it sounds like just a great thing that you all are doing, and it's really awesome to continue to, meet with individuals and aviators like yourself and others that have that common passion, right? And again, we're really fortunate to fly, and to be able to use it to help others is the best thing in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah. And we definitely appreciate it for sure. I always say Angel Flight and any public benefit flying organization wouldn't be anything without the volunteer pilots.
I totally agree. A few other questions for you. I'd love to know, you've been there 10 years. You've seen a lot. You've probably seen a lot of growth. You've seen a lot of people come and help and go and do all kinds of things. Is there any memorable story that just stands out in your head that has really impacted you in your life based on where you're at? I'm sure you see stuff all the time, but I'm just wondering, there's got to be some sort of thing that has just really hit you and it really stands out from a profound standpoint. Just curious.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. There's a couple. This one is not the happiest, but it just made me realize the impact our pilots have on families. We work with a local organization called Final Farewell, and what they do is cover the cost of funeral service for any child who has passed away and the family can't afford it. So unfortunately, we partnered with them, and on their first flight request for us, it was, can you help fly this family's child home who has unfortunately passed away? They don't want to drive. I think they were going back to Massachusetts or somewhere up north. And we were a little nervous about what the volunteer pilot response was going to be because it was something we've never done before. And we sent out the email for the flight with all the details of how sensitive it was. And we were flooded with phone calls in the first maybe 5 minutes. And the pilot who ended up doing the flight, dressed up in a suit and tie to the T's, brought a bouquet of flowers for the family. And it was just probably the most impactful flight I have seen at Angel Flight. And just to be able to be a part of that service and providing the support for that family who was going through an incredibly hardship of that time. It was just amazing. And that's when I was like, I got to stay here forever, I guess.
Wow. Yeah, that's I'm almost speechless. That's amazing. Wow. Yeah, that's impactful right there, right? It really stands out in your mind, and it's, life's short, and so you don't realize that it can change on a dime, and hopefully, finding organizations like yourself and others to help, fulfill any moments that we can do. So I appreciate you sharing that. That's a really,
Yeah.
really cool story. Do you have another? And you said you had a couple. I didn't know if you had one more that stood out for you.
Yeah, the other one that is a little bit more recent, it was for he is 8 months old, Dylan. He lives right outside the DC area, and he actually had two open heart surgeries when he was first born. He was in the hospital for about 4 months, and his family is not from the United States. They were here for the medical care in DC, and we helped fly them to Pittsburgh Children's Hospital for his third open heart surgery. And mom had never been on an airplane before, and she didn't speak English, so we found a pilot who was fluent in Spanish, and we flew baby Dylan, mom, and the sister who spoke English. And we are happy to say Dylan had a successful third open heart surgery, which I always think an 8-month-old should not have three open heart surgeries to begin with. But we had the pilot talking to mom the whole time, and she was just thrilled about the flight experience and couldn't stop showing how grateful she was for Angel Flight. And just to have that experience with her on an airplane for the first time, I was like, I would be terrified. I'd probably never get in a small airplane if I have never flown in a large airplane. But it's just stories like those that show what an impact we have on families, and just thinking about if they didn't have a service like this and not being able to access that critical medical care, they just wouldn't have any other options, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's definitely life-changing, right? I mean, there's no doubt, and that's not cliche. It's certainly life-changing for sure. Yeah, but here's the other thing, and then we'll go from there. But I think it's when you look at it from an impact standpoint, and you look at it from, obviously the individual, but it's exponential impact whenever you really think about it. It's the family, it's the friends, it's the people in their lives that are also impacted. But also at the same time, I mentioned this on the one with Carly, the podcast with Carly, the pilots are impacted too. And so there's just, this whole thing is just pretty cool whenever you really think about it and really put that in perspective. So love what you guys are doing. It's really great.
Yeah, thank you.
So, this has been an amazing conversation. Has there been anything that I, again, haven't asked that we should cover? We've covered a lot, and I really want to make sure that if there's something else we do, anything that I haven't asked.
Yeah, I think you covered pretty much everything, the overview of Angel Flight. So yeah, it was great.
So I guess the next question is going to be check ride next week, yeah?
Oh no. I keep telling my flight instructor, I'm like, you cannot leave until I get my license. And he's like, but what if I get my hours and then I'm going to apply to the airlines? And I was like, you have to stay here. So
Yeah.
it might be a couple years, but
Well,
I would appreciate it if you just stayed.
yeah. Well, then obviously you're going to probably go along the ways and get your instrument ticket so that you can do this type of
Oh
thing.
no.
So,
Yeah, I heard that's hard though. That's what scares me. I heard that's
fun.
a lot of studying.
There's a lot of studying involved in the instrument. The instrument, one could say, is probably one of the hardest tests you will take in aviation because it's kind of the foundation of your license to learn, is what they would say. So yeah, you got it. You'll do this.
Yeah.
You'll kill it.
Yikes. Okay, I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been great. Where can we find you and other than the podcast, how can people get in contact with you?
Yep. So our website is angelflighteast.org, and then we're on all social media platforms just under Angel Flight East.
Very cool. And then as far as the Smokehouse Pilots Club, one of the things that, again, we might be able to figure out if you're open to it, if there's a way to do an event together or do a fly out somewhere where we do collaborate with something like that. If you're open to something like that, I think we should chat about it. We do a lot of events every month where we take airplanes out to go to have lunch. And I feel like if we could parlay that into something like this, and just awareness and teaching to kind of bridge that gap as far as what we were talking about, I think that would be kind of cool. So if you're open to something like that.
Yeah, definitely. I would for sure be interested.
Okay. Well, if those are in the area, I hope that they can join that event this weekend. You said it's Saturday, and which airport is it again?
Yep, it's at Wings Field in Bluebell. So hopefully the weather cooperates with us. I know it's calling for showers, but
Is it?
we never look at the weather until like the day before. You never
Exactly.
know what will happen.
That is right. That is right. Well, Jess, thanks so much for taking the time this evening to have a great conversation. I want to commend all of you for a great job and what you've done with Angel Flight. And so thank you so much for everything you do.
Yeah, thank you.
That being said, I hope everybody that's tuning in is enjoying the podcast Hangar Flying. And for those that don't know, we do launch our podcast every Monday morning, right around 8:30 in the morning. So I hope that everyone's enjoying the show. If you would love to be on the show, let us know. Happy to do that as well. But again, thanks for tuning in to Hangar Flying, and I hope everyone joins us next time.